I've got this statement from the Department of Homeland Security in the United States. They've just provided an update on social media about what's going on the ground in Minneapolis. I'll read it to you. They say at 6:50 local time, federal law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted traffic stop in Minneapolis of what they're calling an illegal alien from Venezuela who was released into the country, they say, by Joe Biden. In an attempt to evade arrest, the Department of Homeland Security says the subject fled the scene in his vehicle and crashed into a parked car. The subject then fled on foot. Homeland Security says the law enforcement officer caught up with the subject on foot and attempted to apprehend him when he began to resist and violently assault the officer. They say that then resulted into a struggle on the ground. Two subjects came out from a nearby apartment and also attacked the law enforcement officer with a snow shovel and a broom handle. This is part of the lengthy statement from the Department of Homeland Security. They say as the officer was being ambushed and attacked by two individuals, the original subject got loose and began striking the officer with a shovel or broomstick. They say fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by the individuals, the officer fired defensive shots to defend his life. The initial subject was hit in the leg. So that is what has triggered the scenes you are seeing right now on your screens in the streets of Minneapolis. Now, to put this in context, we are just 1 week on from the shooting of 37-year-old Renee Good. That has triggered intense emotion and division in the United States between those who believe ICE agents acted recklessly or went too far in the actions they took against this US citizen, and what we've heard in the comments from the US president, members of his administration who claim that the officer was acting in self-defence when he shot the woman through the car windscreen, shooting her dead. This situation, though, a separate incident, as I've been referring to this statement from the Department of Homeland Security, describing what they say are the events that have unfolded tonight there on the ground that led to one of the federal officers shooting this man, hitting him in the leg. At this stage, the attacked officer and the subject are both in hospital. So that's the lay of the land at the moment in the United States. You can see federal officers there. We've seen canisters of smoke exploding at certain times here as federal authorities try and get a handle on the situation on the ground.
Staying in the US, because Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has addressed rising tensions between his local community and federal ICE agents in the wake of a second shooting in Minneapolis. Yesterday's incident has marked the city as a focal point of anti-ICE sentiment. The Department of Homeland Security claiming the shots were fired in self-defense. But Mr. Walz believes there is one man to blame.
Let's be very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. Donald Trump wants this chaos. He wants confusion. And yes, he wants more violence on our streets. We cannot give him what he wants.
The US president has now threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act in the state, writing on social media, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state.
No, we just discussed it, that it was one of the options that he had constitutionally. And we talked about the fact that we're going to continue our operations in Minneapolis and have the resources that we need to get the job done.
Look, let's go to Minneapolis now, where officials say they are aware of reports of a shooting involving federal law enforcement in the city in the past few hours. More than 2,000 federal agents have been deployed to the city as anti-ICE protests escalate. Agents have used tear gas and pepper spray to deter confrontations with protesters as a pushback continues following the death of Renee Good. Kosha, what can you tell us about this latest incident?
Yes, I hate to say it, but this is something that's inevitable. So it's another case of an altercation that's happening from protesters that are either organic or are being egged on by various agitprop groups because this really is existential for their cause and what the illegal immigration industry really means for one side versus the other. And I just think that there's nowhere else to go from here, unfortunately. This clash is going to happen, and one side is going to win and the other will not on this debate, and you are going to see these types of incidents, which don't look well optically for the ICE agents because they're armed, they're going in, they're doing a job. You see these individual people getting in trouble, but that is just the cauldron that we're in right now, and it's just going to continue.